What's up guys, it's Panther, and today I wanted to go over the top 5 mistakes that top laners are making across all ELOs. I recently made a new account and as a result played through just about every ELO, so I just wanted to highlight some of the mistakes that I saw most commonly and some of the quick fixes for those mistakes. Now none of these things are going to be something insane or 200 IQ or require a mechanical prodigy to perform. This is something that the average player can do just with a little bit of practice. The first and most important thing is pushing after a kill. I cannot reiterate enough times how important it is to push after you have killed the enemy top laner. Even if the enemy top laner has TP, you still want to push to make sure that they blow that TP. Worst case scenario is you will just have to base and then match with your own TP if you're not able to get the shove off in time. However, if you're just basing after the kill, you're actually giving them an opportunity to freeze a lot of the time. Now the obvious exception to this rule is if the enemy wave is pushing towards you already when you kill the enemy top laner. If this is the case, then it is better for you to just base and TP straight back to the wave. This will allow you to maintain a freeze and it will force the enemy top laner to TP as well. This, however, is not a situation that you're going to come across all too often. Most of the time your lane is already going to be pushing when you secure a kill and you just want to crash it into the tower all the way. If you need help and your jungler is nearby, then make sure to ask your jungler for help pushing the wave. It is always going to be beneficial for both of you. Another thing that you can do if the wave is already pushed into the tower is proxy another wave. This allows you to get a little bit more gold than you would normally have for your next base, which could result in an item advantage. Be careful, however, if you do decide to proxy for the enemy jungler, and make sure that you don't miss out on any plating. Speaking of plating, the second mistake that I see is nobody plays around plating. Now let me kind of explain what that means since it's such a broad topic in the first place. What I mean by this is there are a lot of players where I won't see them actively look to deny a plate from somebody else or get plates of their own. I will also frequently see somebody walk away from a plate while it is about to go down and the gold goes to absolutely nobody. One plate is worth more than half of a kill, and that is so impactful for the top lane. Now this is not to say that you should just suicide for a plate. That is obviously not worth it. You should, however, look to capitalize on every plate that you can and look to deny whatever plates you can from the enemy laner. You can also use plates as a bait for the enemy laner to try and get them to overextend on your tower and kill them. Remember, if you get 5 plates and the enemy laner gets 0 plates, that means you effectively have 2.5 kills on them. 2.5 kills is a huge deal, and keep in mind, you're not getting this gold from actually killing the enemy laner, you are just getting this gold from pushing to the tower and dealing damage to it. This is why most high elo top laners are opting for demolish in almost every single setup. Just by managing the wave properly, you can completely deny the enemy top laner from getting any plating while you yourself get a lot of plating. Now, getting plates for yourself should be fairly obvious. All you do is shove to the tower, use your demolish proc, get the plate. However, what is less apparent is how you deny plating from the enemy top laner. Now, the key to this is making sure you are taking disciplined backs. I see so many players overstay, and as a result, I am allowed to push to their tower and get a plate of my own when I never should have been allowed to in the first place. You should always have a goal in mind before you base. For example, if your goal is just to get a plate, then make sure as soon as you get that plate, you start your recall. This will allow you to return to lane in time to stop the enemy top laner from shoving all the way to your tower. This is what allows you to deny the enemy top laner plates for themselves. This is by far the easiest way to prevent the enemy top laner from snowballing off of plates. If you are able to just improve this one thing, you will see so much better results. You'll no longer have to deal with fed carries that are just juiced out of their mind off of plates. You are able to deny 800 gold if you're able to perfectly deny plates from the enemy carry, which will contribute so much to winning games. The third mistake that I see is over-aggression. Now, aggression characterizes about 75% of top laners that I come across. Top laners as a whole, just in general, like to be very aggressive, very in your face, they like to trade, they like to deal damage. Now, there's nothing wrong with this inherently. I personally also love dealing damage and all of these things. I love playing super in your face. However, the mistake comes when you're being too aggressive when you are not allowed to be aggressive. This most commonly presents itself in two different situations. One is when you should be CSing instead of trading with the enemy top laner. Just because you chunk the enemy top laner does not necessarily mean that that trade was worth it. If you miss 4 minions for a simple chunk, that's probably not worth it. Now you might be thinking, well, it's only 4 minions, what's the harm there? While yes, it is only 4 minions, if you continuously make those trades over the span of the game, it will add up, and instead of having, say, 190 CS at 20 minutes, you might only be looking at 110 or 120. Remember, it ramps up very quickly, and top lane is very much so a gold-reliant role. The second situation where over-aggression really presents itself is if you don't have vision of the enemy jungler. There were times where I was playing and the enemy top laner flashed aggressively onto me when they had no clue where my jungler was, and as a result, we just 2v1'd him and killed him. Remember, it is always best to assume that the jungler is nearby. Play safe unless you know specifically where the enemy jungler is, or that you can 1v2 them. This will help you prevent a lot of unnecessary deaths to the enemy jungle that might be happening. If you find yourself dying to ganks a lot, take a look at your games and see, am I playing aggressive when I don't know where the enemy jungler is? The fourth mistake that I see is oversplitting. That's right, I'm looking at you, Fiora and Jax mains. Just because your champion is most effective in a side lane does not mean that you are allowed to split for the entire game without ever grouping with your team. Again, I also really enjoy split pushing, but that does not mean that I will spend the entire game in a side lane. There are times where the group is more important than the solo side laner. For instance, if you don't have teleport and the enemy has Baron pressure, then you should not be splitting. It's not okay for you to do that. You're just going to give Baron to the enemy team. Make sure that you know when it is appropriate for you to be splitting and when it is not. The best way to figure out whether or not you should or should not be splitting is to take a look at the enemy team and see, can they punish me for splitting, or can they punish my team for me splitting? If the answer to either of these questions is yes, it is likely not the best idea for you to be splitting. Now, the obvious exception would be if they need, say, 2, 3, or even 4 members to kill you in the side lane, and in that time, your team is able to do Baron. This does not mean you just shove to the tower and auto the tower until you die, though. If you are going to split, then you should shove to the tower. If you don't see the enemy team, back off. Wait until somebody shows, and then you can go back up to the tower. Now, the last mistake that I actually see a lot of top laners make pertains more to champion select. Remember that oftentimes as a top laner, it is your job to round out the team and give it what it needs. For example, if your mid laner already picked Zed and your jungler already picked Jarvan, then you should not lock in Riven. This is just going to be detrimental to your team. Now, obviously, if you're a one-trick, make sure you lock in your one-trick. This does not apply to you. But if you are somebody who tries to be a jack-of-all-trades, then try to lock in something that will complement your team. If you're full AD, lock in a mage top or a tank that is capable of dealing at least a little bit of magic damage. It's okay to come into champion select with something in mind, but don't be so stubborn that you're going to lock the same thing no matter what your team picks. Remember, top laners are the dads of League of Legends. You may not like it, but you need to provide for your kids, and it is in your best interest if you keep your kids happy. Again, this does not apply to one-tricks. If you are a one-trick, always lock in your one-trick no matter what, or dodge if the team comp is bad. That does it for today's video on the 5 most common mistakes that I see top laners specifically making. If you liked the video, make sure to leave a like and subscribe. We post new content done by Challenger players every day. If you have any ideas for any future videos that you would like us to see, make sure to let us know in a comment down below. As always, I hope you learned something valuable, and I will see you in the next one.